The latest tech.
People love iPhone, and it's an important part of our daily lives.
Interviews.
You see far too many products that come on the market that you look at that you say, was a blind person ever even consulted for something like this?
Accessibility.
The most interesting thing over the last couple of years is the emphasis on gaming and accessibility.
This is DoubleTap TV.
Welcome to another week in DoubleTap TV. I am Marc Aflalo.
And I'm Stephen Scott.
Stephen, this week we're going to discuss a subject that's very close to your heart, and that is the education of Braille to blind and low vision children.
Yes, that's right. And we'll be joined by two great guests today from the Touchpad Pro Foundation, who have created a new device to not only help young children to learn Braille, but do so in an affordable way for schools, not just here in Canada, for example, but around the world.
Stephen, I said this was a subject close to your heart, but am I wrong in presuming that you only started learning Braille a few years ago, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So you might think, well, why do I care about children learning Braille? But, ultimately for me, it's a personal story because I didn't learn Braille at school. I got the opportunity thanks to a Braille teacher who was learning herself to become a Braille teacher. I became her guinea pig, essentially, and I was able to do grade 1 Braille, which is essentially just the alphabet, numbers, and basic punctuation. And she left the school at the end of that year, so I never got the chance to sit with her and go through grade 2, which really annoyed me at the time, only because I was really enjoying the class and I was really picking this up. And then I zoom forward maybe 25 years, and in between that experience and now, I had no use for Braille. Not really. I'd never used it. I never had a need for it. And I thought when I had come to the conclusion later in life that I would need it again, I thought I'm going to have to start from the beginning, literally from the beginning, because I will not remember any of this. And I swear to you, as soon as I put my fingers on the dots, it came flooding back. Grade 1 came flooding back. And it made me realize something, that children soak these things up. Yeah. They really do. And, being a child once, I did. I soaked it up to the point that when I went back to it 25 years on, I was able to understand it. Okay, I still needed to learn a lot, but it was in there. It was all in there somewhere. And that was really important for me, and it really stuck out.
What do you think would have been different for you in your life if you had actually learned Braille fully as a child?
Well, you can only see this from the point of view of hindsight. I would have certainly had a much better education. Now, that's not to say I had a bad education, but I would have had a much better one, right? Because I would have been able to read more. One thing you don't realise as a partially sighted child, and certainly I didn't realise, was my reading ability was shocking. And I put a lot of it down to laziness. I put a lot of it down to tiredness. I just couldn't read for very long periods of time. So they would give me, at my school, lots and lots of books with large print or enlarged versions, which basically meant they used an A3 photocopier to take something that was on an A4 page and make it A3, which didn't really enlarge it very far. And then I would have these huge books to carry around, and inevitably, had a desk in class of my own because there was so much paperwork that I was carrying around. But I wasn't able to read the majority of it. And a lot of my exams and a lot of the things I did at school, I did, if I'm honest, by winging it, because I just couldn't read things for long periods of time. Had I had Braille, I would have been able to, and it would have opened up my career prospects massively.
But why do you think children are not taught Braille at such a young age? Don't you think it would be a given?
Well, to be clear, children are taught Braille at school, blind children, but blind children, not low vision children. And that's because of the emergence of assistive technology. So with computers being able to talk, teachers, for the visually impaired, will often look at that technology and say, well, okay, you've got enough vision to perhaps use magnification on a computer, so you can use that. For those that need speech, you can use that as well. Maybe a combination of Zoom, magnification, speech, that kind of thing. So you don't need Braille in your life because, you know what, they're probably thinking, Braille's probably going to be dead in 10, 15 years. Well, the truth is it will be if we don't teach children how to read.
Yeah.
And ultimately, this is what it comes down to. This is literacy. We would never turn around to our children. You have kids, right? You would not expect them to come home and just be excused from being able to read and write class. That just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it just wouldn't.
But it does happen with blind children, and that's not good enough.
Do you think this is a universal problem? Like, do you think it's the same no matter where we are in the world? Are there examples where countries are actually doing it better than others?
Well, this is the joy of the job I do. I get to speak to lots of different people in lots of different parts of the world. And, recently in Ireland, I heard of a story where children are now being taught, those who are low vision, are being taught both Braille and assistive technology. And I applaud that. I think that's incredible to see. I want to hear more countries doing it. It's not happening in the UK, it's not happening in America, and it's not happening enough in Canada, although things are getting better in Canada, interestingly. But that's partly because we're talking out about this more. And more of us, more people like myself, who've gone through this experience, need to talk more about it. And those parents need to get away from the idea, because this comes up a lot, that we're trying to make their children blind or trying to pretend their child is blind when they have vision. It's not about that. It's about teaching your child to be able to read and write and give them the skills to go on and have a great life. And also, how do you know that in 20 years' time, your child might not have any vision at all? Don't you want them to be prepared for that? So that's my campaign.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Well, you know what? Coming up, we've got a solution to this problem, hopefully. We're going to be joined by the creator of a new product called the Braille Doodle. Now, they're straight off the back of their second round of Kickstarter funding, and we're going to get a description of the device and obviously what of course, the hope is for its future. So do stick around. This is DoubleTap TV. We'll be back in just a moment.
You're watching DoubleTap TV. Get involved. Follow us at DoubleTap On Air or email us feedback@doubletaponair.com. DoubleTap TV will be right back. You're watching DoubleTap TV.
And we're back today talking about the value and importance of learning Braille as a child, no matter whether you're blind or have low vision. Now, our guests today are from the Touchpad Pro Foundation. Guys, why don't you both introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is Daniel Lubiner. I'm the CEO and founder of Touchpad Pro Foundation, and I'm here in New York City, well above New York City in Westchester.
Hi, this is Matthew Bullis. I'm the Chief Experience Officer of the Touchpad Pro Foundation, and I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona.
So, guys, before we start and get into this, Matthew, I'm intrigued by your choice of T-shirt that you're wearing. Could you describe what's on that for us?
This shirt is from my main career as a technology teacher of blind and visually impaired adults at the Foundation for Blind Children here in Phoenix. And it refers to the fact that we're virtually unstoppable because during the pandemic and right at the start of the pandemic, we just kept going. We taught our classes over the phone, including Braille, to the best that we could, and technology. We just kept going that Monday right after. So we're virtually unstoppable.
Brilliant. I love it. Okay, so let's talk about your product. Daniel, I'll start with you. You've been a teacher for over 25 years and you've seen firsthand the challenges blind children have in accessing Braille learning. But it really was the COVID-19 pandemic that inspired what is now the Braille Doodle, right?
So the pandemic hit, right? Everybody goes home. When you imagine the challenges of teaching virtually, teaching art stopped. Braille instruction, anything a little complicated, became extremely, extremely difficult because the students didn't have anything in front of them. So I had this toy from Amazon that had these magnets that would lift up the balls, but when you touched it, the balls would fall down. So I was thinking, wow, this would be a great product for teaching Braille and for doing art if it was made for blind students. So that was like made for sighted students. So if we had something that where the balls would stay up just right, okay, and you would be able to feel them, and then when you were ready, we could push them right down and they would go right down. So that was that turned into my mission in life, is to find out this thing, and it just kind of snowballed into something where we have now something that you could take out of the box and start learning Braille. And your mom could start learning Braille, and your friends could start learning Braille, and you could all learn Braille together because it's all right here. And it's like a no-fail, high-success situation, motivational. You do it over and over again. And it also is done so it makes sense, because I found a lot of Braille products, I don't know, they make a lot of sense to me because you learn like one letter at a time, or two letters, or three, maybe even five. But when we're teaching reading, we teach the sounds and the letters. We go through that pretty quickly.
Matthew, talk to us about your role in the development of this product.
My interest in this product came because I've been a lifelong Braille reader, and teaching Braille to adults and using Braille in my own life is very important. Depending on what a person's Braille goal is, they could just want to read the restroom sign, or they could want to read a novel, or to read to their kids or grandkids. So learning Braille is a challenge for a lot of people. And something like this, where you get an opportunity to free draw on one side, but then practice your Braille on the other side, is a twofer, I guess we could say. And with the ability to be able to write Braille forward with some covers that we can put on it, will be a great opportunity, because then you can take some small notes down.
Daniel, you've got the product in your hand. Can you describe what it actually looks like to our audience?
Yeah, sure. So the product is about the size of a laptop, right? A large laptop, about 1 inch thick. And on the front here is the Braille side. It says Braille Doodle on top, and then there are letters across in rows. Now the letters are, the cells for the letters are pretty jumbo. So there's like a jumbo cell for the A, and that says A underneath, and then it has the number 1, so to indicate that the A is also the number 1. And next to that is the actual Braille. So you get to feel what the actual Braille feels like as well. So you feel the jumbo, then the actual Braille. Now, the idea of the device, too, on the Braille side, is that when you lift up the B, for example, copy the B, and you get to practice it. And then on the bottom, so it goes A through Z, all the way 2 spaces for each. It has the number indicator, the and, the for, of, the contractions. And on the bottom, it has lines for writing. Okay, so you have about 20 cells across. The final product will have 2 lines because we make it a little bit smaller. And then when I flip it over, I think it's over 1,350 dots that are going to be here. Like a lot of holes, which in each hole is a little metal ball. And when you go over it with a magnetic stylus, it lifts the ball to the surface.
Oh, that's cool. So they can use it for drawing or practicing.
And whenever I want to erase something or push back down, I simply push them back down into the device. And it also offers a contrast because it's a very dark color and the balls are shiny, So for people on the low vision spectrum, they'll be able to see as much as possible what they're doing at the same time.
Okay, so let me ask you a question that might seem like it has an obvious answer to those in the know, but what is the need out there for a product like this?
Unfortunately, it's very disturbing, And then that was the thing, Stephen, is I get to really care about my students. Like I really love them, and I still speak with some of them. And when I started working on this and doing my research, I started seeing these statistics. It was just disgusting to me how like only 10% of kids on the vision spectrum are learning Braille. I don't see how that's possible. If we said that of sighted kids, there would be riots in the street. And then if if there was like during a pandemic, we said, oh, we're going to stop teaching your kids how to read and write. that, it just wouldn't be acceptable. But because kids are blind, they're like, okay, it happens. They're blind, but it's just simply unacceptable.
We're in conversation today with Daniel Lubiner and Matthew Bullis from the Touchpad Pro Foundation, all about their new product, the Braille Doodle. We're going to find out about its competition next, and also what value Matthew places on the Braille code itself. More in just a moment.
Can't get enough DoubleTap TV? Subscribe to the podcast and get your fill of DoubleTap every day. Visit doubletaponair.com and follow us now. DoubleTap TV will be right back. You're watching DoubleTap TV.
And we're back on DoubleTap TV with Daniel Lubiner and Matthew Bullis from the Touchpad Pro Foundation. Marc and I are talking about their new product, the Braille Doodle.
I'm intrigued to know, guys, is there anything else out there at the moment that's similar to what you're doing? Is this totally unique?
Not that I can think of. This is a unique product, and it's a great thing that needs to be out there in the world. And it's been several years that Daniel's been working on this as well. And I contacted Daniel because I was interested, and I was making suggestions and asking questions, and he figured I was the guy to help out with this type of thing.
Right. And we've had hours of conversation since. I really haven't found a lot of products that are like this at all, especially when it comes to doing the words and sentences. And then when you flip it over, you have this whole side for drawing. And not only can you draw in here, you could do graphs, you can make science diagrams. So it's really like an introduction into tactile graphics.
I remember that during college, we did have a rubberized graph board, but even with that, with the hundreds of squares that it had on it, you still had to use thumbtacks and string to stretch across the axis. It wasn't built in, and then you had to use more thumbtacks to plot your points. So the problem with a lot of things, not just teachers of the visually impaired, I mean, teachers all over the world for any subject, it's hard to make a standard. People have to create their own items for teaching. There's not as much standard. And so that's something that the Braille Doodle will help to conform to, is that this is a device that will stay together. It's got multi-purpose. That's what we're hoping for, definitely.
It's also important to think about this in international terms as well, right? For example, in poorer parts of the world where access to most kinds of specialist technology is so limited, access to learning should be universal.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Stephen, because we've been going around that thing. That's the thing. I want this to be very disruptive cost-wise, because the prices out there are just ridiculous. They get pumped up because of this reason or that reason, and then you end up paying like $80 for a little Braille cell or something. We want to keep the price down considerably. It makes it accessible. So instead of buying one for your classroom, you could buy 5 for the classroom.
That's just brilliant. Matthew, we talked about the products and, of course, solutions to Braille learning and usage here on the show often. But what does Braille itself as a method of reading mean to you?
I wouldn't be without Braille. If I didn't have Braille, if I hadn't practiced, if I hadn't read aloud, I would be in a far worse position today, because I booked hotel rooms at Best Western International for almost 3 years, including during Hurricane Katrina. And I had a double-eared headset, the screen reader reading to me in my left ear, the caller in the right ear, Braille under my fingers, 90 calls a day, reading the hotel scripts and telling the guests their confirmation number and all the other hotel details. I wouldn't be without Braille at all.
And Daniel, I want to ask you how you feel the Braille Doodle will contribute to the overall mission and goals of your organization, the Touchpad Pro Foundation.
I think once we get going, within our first year, we should be able to be self-sustaining, where we can be able to give out Braille Doodles for free. Because that was the other frustrating thing, Stephen, is when my students during the COVID pandemic, when they went home, they lived in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, they couldn't always go on to Amazon and just pick up some art supplies or pick up some things. and the school just couldn't afford to give everybody everything. But with something like this, like maybe we could give it out. Maybe there would be people generous enough to just say, okay, well, I'll buy 10 of them for this school. I'll buy, 20 of them for this school.
Daniel Lubiner, the creator of the Braille Doodle, and of course Matthew Bullis, Chief Experience Officer at the Touchpad Pro Foundation. Great to have you both here on DoubleTap TV. Thanks for being with us this week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And if you want to know more about the Braille Doodle, then visit their website, touchpadprofoundation.org, and read more there. Another interesting show, Mark. I want to ask you, because you're always asking me these questions, what was your takeaway from all of this?
I think it's just kind of obvious that we're feeling the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that, teaching specifically for things like Braille, we're really badly hit. And if we can empower our children in some way, shape, or form to do it in a creative, captivating way, then we're giving them the tools they need to excel regardless of ability or disability at the end of the day here.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic product, and I wish them well. That is it for another episode of DoubleTap TV. Join us again next week for more news in accessible tech.
Thanks for watching Double Tap. Send us your feedback to feedback@doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. Hosted by Marc Aflalo in Montreal and Stephen Scott in Glasgow. Producer Marc Aflalo. Editing and graphics Jordan Steves. Voiceover Anna Vicino. Social media Wendy Kaufman. Integrated Described Video Specialist M. Williams. Supervising Producer Michelle Dudas. Manager Programming AMI TV Lizanne Gagne. Director Content Development and Production Kara Nye. VP Content Development and Operations John Melville. President and CEO David Arrington. Copyright 2023 Accessible Media Inc.
An AMI original production.